Greetings, BUSN-1360 Software Apps for Business Students. I'm Dr. McGrory, your instructor, and welcome to PowerPoint Chapter 3. This is a fun chapter. The title of this chapter is Formatting Presentations, but it's so much more than what you could do in Word, because PowerPoint presentations are designed to be a little bit more motion. There should be more motion in them. So you're going to see animations and transitions, and it's going to add movement to your slides, which really keeps your audience engaged. So let's get started. Of course, you know that I've already created my PowerPoint 3 folder on my desktop, really easy to find. I'm going to double click that, and I've already downloaded my PowerPoint start file as well as the solution file. Let's review the solution file. This is totally different than the health goals that we were seeing in the previous presentation. This is now a marketing agency, R.W. Morris Marketing, and it says putting your needs first. But what I'm looking at is the colors, the background colors, the banner, which adds some attention to this, to our company name. This is slide 2. There's 9 slides total. And this one is brighter, and that's important because if you're on a projector or even on a computer screen, you want people to be able to see. So look at the contrast with this white text on this brighter background. Honestly, I might change this to a black text on this bright background so that it's easy to see. Here with the darker background, with this kind of transparent black background, the white lettering is very visible with our goal. Here we see the consistency on this second slide. So again, we have a banner, up here with the title, and then we have this bullet. We have some more bullets, and you're familiar with this. So, we're giving our presentation, okay? Now we have client quotes. And to really draw attention to that, it looks like they've added some kind of shape here, a little graphic that indicates, hey, these are quotes. And they've got 2 levels of bullets here. 3 levels. They've indented. They have this title, What Others Have Said About R.W. Morris Marketing. They have the quote, and then they're saying who the quote belongs to. Again, this is, another slide. A nice thing about this is a nice way to give yourself some, street cred here. You're saying, well, who are we? We are a member of this, AMA, which is kind of the marketing association, right? And we're an award winner. So you can just put that on the slide. So it's just not brag, just fact, okay? So here, again, education and training, maybe we're touting our credentials. Now we get into some interesting stuff here on slide 8 because we see these arrows. We see a graphic up here also, which adds to this title, right? It says, hey, this is our trajectory. We're going up. And these arrows indicate a process. They're connected. First, we're going to analyze, then we're going to design, then we're going to implement. And for processes like this, PowerPoint, as well as Word, actually, we know that there is some SmartArt. We have looked at WordArt in the past. Now we're going to see some SmartArt, and you're going to really enjoy that. Actually, I think we looked at that in Word. Okay, so here we're with a table, and you're familiar with those. It's a nice way to organize our information. So this is the R.W. Morris Marketing Belief System on the very last slide of our presentation. Again, I want you to be very aware of the contrast of the colors and how easy it is for your audience to understand. Communication is about the other person receiving the information. So if you want the sale, you have to convey that information to the other person. Can they see this white lettering on this yellow background? If you feel that that's really visible, that's okay. If you're on a projector, if your computer is in a really bright room, are they going to be able to see that contrast? And we also see a picture here. Actually, it looks like it has a nice border going around it, maybe even a little shadow there. So that's really a nice looking slide. So let's get in there and see how our presentation can be changed to this. I've opened SimNet, our skill review project, in Chrome, which is the preferred browser. And of course, I've downloaded the start file. We looked at the solution file. We have not yet opened the start file. We'll do that in just a moment. And as I scroll down, In this project, we're going to be modifying the look of that marketing presentation for R.W. Morris Marketing Agency. We looked at that. We see what the modifications are. There's some things we couldn't see in that PDF of the PowerPoint presentation. We could see things like themes and, even the backgrounds, but what we couldn't see is something called slide transitions. So that's going to be new for us in this chapter. Adds a little pizzazz as you're giving your presentation. We know styles, we've been using that, fill colors, even outlines. This is the SmartArt I was mentioning, those arrows. So you're going to see that. Animations. This is also something that we have not explored together in PowerPoint. And this is going to give your graphics movement, motion, which again keeps your audience engaged in this. We've looked at tables. We're going to add a table style. So some of this is familiar, the picture styles gallery. So what do we need to do here? Well, in step 1, we need to open the presentation. And in step 2, we need to enable editing. So let's do that. I'm going to minimize my browser. Here's my presentation. And we need to enable editing. I opened it and closed it, so it's already remembering that I've enabled that. So I'm just closing that title bar there. And I'm in the normal view of PowerPoint, and I can see the presentation. It's definitely not as attractive as that solution file that we looked at. So let's go back to our instructions. We opened the file and we enabled editing. Let me scroll up a little bit. On to step 3. In step 3, it says change the presentation theme and variant. So how are we going to do that? Well, we know how to go to themes, but what is a variant? It says in the variant group, we're going to select the green option. So what we're seeing is that themes can have variations inside of them. So let's look at that. I'm going to move these instructions over to the side. And in our PowerPoint presentation, we know that we need to go to the design ribbon. And in the design ribbon, what was the theme? It was the Berlin theme this time. If I click this drop-down ribbon, I have a lot of themes here. Now, the first one is Office, and then Facet. So they're not necessarily in alphabetical order. I think some of these more popular ones are at the top. As you hover over them, you'll see the name. And you might have to, go through the list here. But let's see, that was Atlas. Now I'm a little bit in alphabetical order. Banded. What is this one? Basis. And Berlin. So here, for me, in the second row, the third icon is the Berlin theme. So I'm going to pick that. And you'll notice all my slides change. The designer, you'll read about that in your chapter, offers some alternative designs, so that you can start to make, for example, your title slide a little more dramatic, have a little bit more flair to it, or maybe just better clarity. But we're going to stick with the design that we have. But what I want you to see is that it's orange. That was not what our solution file looked like. The solution file was green. So that's what they're asking us to do, is to look across on this design ribbon, go all the way across, and this is where you see variants. Now I'm going to expand this just so you can see there are variants, and we're going to choose this green one. And do you see, as I hover over it, my title slide has already changed, at least in the main part of the normal view, to show me this is what it will look like. But within those variants, I can further change, the slide color. Look at that for different themes, fonts, various effects and background styles. So that's something you want to explore and have fun with this. PowerPoint is a fun software. So I'm going to select green. Watch my slides when I do that. So you see all of my slides reflect that theme. Now I'm going to close this designer panel just because we don't need it. And it was cool to observe though, but we're going to continue on with our instructions. So far so good. Let's save that. Go back to our instructions. We changed the theme and we applied the green variant. On to step 4. It says we're going to apply a pattern background to the slide. So if necessary, they want us to start with slide 1. So it looks like it may start from whatever slide we have selected and then continue on. So that's going to be important. We're going to go to the Customize group. We're going to format the background. We're going to do a pattern fill. There's a lot of details here, so let me just walk you through that. I'm going to move those instructions out of the way. We are still on the Design tab, and we've looked at themes, we've looked at variants. Continue across to Customize, and you can see it says Slide Size, and there's even Format Background. That's what we're interested in, Format Background. And it opens the settings in this side panel. Lots of stuff going on here. They tell us, I select the Pattern Fill radio button under Fill. So instead of Gradient Fill, we want Pattern Fill. Wow, look at that. And then we have a whole host of options here in terms of our pattern. We want to think a little bit about our solution file, and I don't recall it looking quite this dotted. They tell us that the dotted background that they want is 70%. So we selected Pattern Fill. Look down here, and I might have to hover over. That's 5% dotted. My mouse is hiding this from me a little bit. That's 50%. I'm on the right track here. 60%, 70%. So it does tell us that it's in the second row, the third option. So we're on track there. That looks much more like what we saw in the solution file. However, the PDF, I think, might have made it hard to see these dots in the background. Well, first of all, save that. We're not done with the instructions, but we've done some really good work, so let's save that. Then we're going to continue on. It says click the foreground option, or foreground down here at the bottom. See how we have foreground and background? And they want us to change both of these settings, but we're going to start with foreground. I'm going to click this option here, and it says they want green background 2, darker 50%, which is the third option in the last row under color themes. So very last row of color themes, they say third option, green background 2, darker 50%. Select that. So notice that just changed my title slide, but now it's really dramatic, isn't it? We're not done yet. Remember, we're going to change this background too, and this looks a little different. Click on that drop down. They also want this to be the green background too, but this time darker 25%, which they say is the third option in the next to the last row under color theme. So once again, third option, see that? Yeah, that is still dark, dramatic, but we can see that a little bit better. Save that. And let's go back to the instructions. We did a lot of changes there. It looks very nice. On to step 5. Apply a slide transition to all the slides in the presentation. So it says click the Transitions tab, and notice that we're going to choose this Apply to All, but the transition we're going to select is Split. So let's do that. I'm going to move these out of the way. So we're going to the Transitions tab, right here next to Design, and these are transitions, and you can hover over them, and sometimes they'll show you. I tell you what I want to do. This is not in the instructions, but you will see it more clearly. Instead of doing this in the normal view, I'm going down to this bottom, see the slide sorter. Do you remember the slide sorter view? Click on that. And in this view, this is like laying all your slides out on a work surface so that you can rearrange them. They do this in magazines and different storyboarding of books or even websites so that you know how things are going to look. And it makes it easy to drag and drop these slides around. It also makes it really easy to select them. So my first slide is selected. Do you see the red border around it? I'm going to hold my Shift key down, and I'm going to select the very last slide because the instructions tell me to apply the transition to all the slides. So what is selected will be affected. And this is where, it kind of becomes fun because if I look at, I've got morph and fade and push, all these until I get to split. I'm going to select that one. When I click on that, Isn't that neat? Did you see that? And look how the second one. Because I have them all selected, it's applying to each one, and it's giving me a little preview of what that split looks like. If you want to have a little fun, you can certainly select a different one. Maybe you want to do random bars. You can, and I'm going to continue on, but you see that there are even other ones. And notice the groups. There are subtle, you want to be very professional. There are exciting, and there are dynamic. So what are some of these? How about orbit? Look at that one. These are transitions. Doesn't that really get your attention? It lets people know, hey, the slide is changing. You better pay attention. And now the different transitions we see in this narrow window are those exciting transitions. How about comb? So you can really look at this. Sometimes you want to do a different transition as you go from slide to slide. This can help keep your audience engaged. However, don't go overboard. You want to be professional. You don't want your audience to be dizzy at the end of this, right? You want them to focus on the content, not the flash. Now, we need to follow the instructions, so I'm going to go back. I clicked on that drop-down box, and I'm going to click Split. Excellent. Save that. We go back to these instructions. We click Transition. We learned while we earned. Oh, but there's one additional. Oh, they said in the timing group. So this is kind of interesting. Shall we look at that? I just want to raise your awareness of this timing group over here on the side. This is where the Apply to All button is. We did not need that because I had selected all the slides prior to picking the effect. But what I want you to see is that you can control how long these transitions happen. Some of them are really nice, but they just take too long. So if you are limited, for example, your teacher says 5-minute presentation, and you've given transitions, and those transitions last, look at this, 1.5 seconds, depending on how many slides you have, it could put you over. On to step 6. Apply a quick style to a drawing object, and this is going to be on slide 5. For this, I think we should go back to the normal view. We're going to select a call-out shape at the top. I think this is going to be that comments slide, and we're going to format that with this light 1 outline color fill. So let's move that to the side. Let's change to the normal view. I'm going to click on slide 5. And sure enough, these are the quotes that we have. So we've navigated here. It says select the call out. Now, a call out, if you'll remember, has this piece from the shape that can point to things. So I'm going to Control Z to undo this, but do you see this yellow dot? If I needed to point to something, I need to point to client quotes. In this way, it says whatever I'm going to say in this little bubble applies to client quotes. That's why it's called a call out. They use these on blueprints and just in a variety of things. Of course, I don't want to change the shape, so Control Z to undo that. I do have it selected, and we're going to shape format. We're on that ribbon, and they want us. First of all, let me make sure that ribbon, I'm sorry, that ribbon was not active. So let me click on that. They want us to click on More. Okay, so here are our shape styles. I'm going to click on this drop-down box so that I can get more. And we need to select Light 1, which they say is the second option in the third row. Light 1 outline, color-filled lime, accent 1. Perfect. Click that. Yeah, that's a little brighter now. It's more visible. I can see that. Save that. Let's check off our instructions. On to step 7. Verify the callout shape is still selected because we're going to change the shape fill. They want that shape fill to be lime accent 1 lighter 60%. They're telling us where it's at, so let me move these instructions out of the way. The shape is still selected. Here we're going to shape fill. So I can customize this. I selected the style first. Now I'm going to customize it just a little bit. So they say fifth. It's the fifth option in the third row. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That looks like it. Light accent 1, lighter 60%. Very nice. Save that. Look at us. See, these are familiar to you. The interface, this is PowerPoint instead of Word, for example, but you have learned these skills, so they're transferable skills from software to software. On to step 8. Change the outline of that drawing object. It says verify it's still selected. This time we're just affecting the outline, and we're going to go to a lighter 80%. We're also going to make sure it's kind of thicker, so the weight of that outline is going to be 3 points. My shape is still selected. Up here on the shape format ribbon, make sure that's active. Click on shape outline, and we are going to go to the fifth option in the second row. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Accent 1, lighter 80%. So this is that line. All right, almost there. Not done, because remember, we don't really see that line going around the outside. So click on shape outline once again. We've got the color. We just need to come down here towards the bottom where it says weight and see these different thicknesses. This 3 point is the size they recommend. I can see it just a little bit more. It's still pretty subtle, I have to say. Make sure I selected that. Yeah, see how as I hover over, you can see that that one is shaded a little bit, so I definitely have that one. Save that. Go back to our instructions. On to step 9. So modify the look of a SmartArt diagram. Select the SmartArt diagram on slide 8, and then we're going to change the design to polished, and we're going to change the color. So let's look at that. Slide 8. Did I say slide 8? Hopefully. Slide 8. This is the one that has the little people up here, and here's our SmartArt. This is all one item. Do you see the dots going around the outside? And notice that when I clicked, where I clicked caused me to select one of the items inside the SmartArt. If I click over here, you see it's changing. And the SmartArt, if you remember, is smart because what I could do is I can click inside this little pop-up bubble over here, and I'm going to move my mouse out of the way. If I press the Enter key, did you see over in my diagram, it added another arrow to the box. So I could say, how about evaluate? Maybe we want to get feedback. And do you see how as I'm typing in this box, it updated this SmartArt? That's what makes it very smart, is that it's so interactive, makes it easy for me to put a process on my PowerPoint very fast. I need to go back to the instructions. So Control-Z, Control-Z, and I'm back to where I started. So what do they want us to do? They want us to click the SmartArt Design tab. So we have this ribbon because our SmartArt is selected. Now I'm going to click the SmartArt ribbon, and you can see, goodness, all kinds of things. I do not want just one shape selected. Remember with our charts and graphs how we had to be really careful about that? So moving my mouse to the outer border, I get that 4-sided arrow. We learned that in Excel. Click that so that only the entire object is selected. None of the individual items, but the entire object is selected. The dots are only on the outside. In this SmartArt group, I can hover over some of these. You can see the names and even how they change the appearance of that SmartArt. What we're looking for is polished. We want it to look polished. If you don't see that, you might need to click that More button on the side, but I'm going to click this. Now we want to change the colors. So, over here, You see this little color palette. Click on that. And you see again how they describe it, colorful, accent 1, 2, 3. They want us to choose accent 2, the second option. So color filled accent 2. And that looks like our solution file. Select that. Save. Back to our instructions. We modified that SmartArt, gave it that polished style, and then changed the color. On to step 10. We're going to apply an animation. Earlier, we applied transitions, how one slide changed or transitioned to the next slide. Those were transitions. Now we're talking about animations, and animations focus on a particular object on the slide. So it says verify the SmartArt diagram is selected, and click the Animations tab, and we're going to use the animation float in effect. So let me move these instructions out of the way. Now we still have the object selected, the entire SmartArt object. And you can do this to any object. You can do it to a text object. You could do it to this little graphic up here, to that quote call out that we were looking at earlier. But the whole object is selected. And across the top, see there was transitions. Now we're going to animations. And you want to open that ribbon. And we are looking for float in. Now these are really cool, and I encourage you to look at all of them. You can always Control Z to undo. See how that came in so subtly? Let's see, Copilot is trying to help me. It came in very subtly, which is nice. It makes your audience look and pay attention. It adds interest without making them nauseous because it's dizzying and it's a whirling, kind of mess because too much. That looks really nice. Save that. Verify the SmartArt, click the animations, and we applied that animation effect that they wanted. On to step 11. Change the effect of the animation. So we're going to verify that SmartArt's still selected because that's where the animation was applied. But it says on the Animations tab in the animation group, we're going to click the Effect Options button and select that we want it to float down. It floated up as it came in. That's the default. Then we're going to go further and we're going to change that effect so that we select one by one. Well, we have an object with multiple shapes in it. One by one is the effect that we're going to apply. So my SmartArt, I need to make sure it's still selected, but only the whole object is selected. And remember, we did animation and float in. Continue across, see effect option, and it's that up arrow. And if we wanted to see how this worked right now, what if we went to slideshow using our button down here at the bottom? I could talk about R.W. Morris marketing process, blah, blah, right? Then when I click, do you see how it floated up? Well, we're going to change that because we want it to float down. Click that. See how it previewed it? It came in down. And we're also going to change it to come in one by one. Notice what's currently selected. It's as one object. And you have some different choices here with text. It can be what level. Is it the first list of bullets, the second list of bullets? How does it come in? Well, we want it to come in one by one. And you can certainly experiment with these. Look at that. Now, currently, the way our slide is set up, if I go into the show, I talk about the process, I click once, I talk about analyze, I click again, I talk about design, I click again, I talk about implement. And see how each one of those came down and fell into place? Excellent. Hit escape, for example, to exit your slideshow. And we're back. Save that. That was some excellent work. Back to our instructions. Step 11. We applied that animation. On to step 12. Apply a quick style to a table. So we know about tables. We've done those in the last chapter. So we're going to select slide 9. We're going to go to table design. And it says in the table styles, we're going to click best match for document section. And they're telling us theme style. So let me move these instructions out of the way. We need to go to the next slide, which is slide 9. Here's our table. We're going to probably select that table. Make sure that the object is selected. So again, I can click on that border. And in the table design, see, I had to select that table to get my ribbons up here. Table design. They want us in the table styles group to click this more button. Best match for document selection. Those are at the top here. So these fit with our theme. They're consistent. It doesn't mean we can't choose something else, but these are going to be a little bit more consistent. And they want us to go to theme style 1, accent 2, which is the third option. So let's just see. Theme style 1, accent 2, and that looks like our solution file also. Click that. Save that. Back to the instructions. Look at us. We are applying skills that we learned, first of all, in the last chapter, and also in Microsoft Word. And we're just seeing how easily those skills can be applied to really cause some great impact on our slides. Now we're going to apply a picture style to an image. We're still on slide 9, but we're going to select that picture. And look at this, a simple frame with that white border that we saw in the solution file. So let's move this out of the way. I'm going to select my picture now, and that brings up shape format in picture format. They want us to go to this picture format ribbon. And even as you hover over these various picture styles, do you see your picture changing? Well, we are looking for a simple frame with a white border. Now this one is beveled. How about this very first one? If you do not see it, you might have to click the More button. Simple frame, white border. Select that. I don't know why my table seemed to be selected there, but that we just want that one object selected. That looks a lot like the solution file. Excellent. Save that. We are at the end of those instructions already, but before we close, don't you want to see your presentation? I'm going to press the F5 key on my keyboard, which starts the show at slide 1. Nice transition. I introduce myself, I start the presentation, I click my mouse, or I press the Enter key on my keyboard to advance. As I go through my slides, I advance again. Someone says, wait a minute, what did you say your experience was? I can use my arrow key or the backspace key to go back to that slide. I can use the arrow key to advance forward. Now this is a lot of text on one slide. I would not do this if I was going to speak about this, but if I was going to give this show to someone to display on their own time, yeah, you may want to put a little bit more text, not too much, but more than is probably usual. We go to the client quotes. You see the beautiful transitions. Here's our credentials. On to the education and training. Here's our process slide. This, you're presenting. You don't want people to rush ahead. Instead of having bullets, which can be a little boring, you're going to say, here's our process. We analyze, we design, we implement. Then you continue to your next slide. Here's our belief system. It's nicely outlined in a table here. We've got a picture perhaps of our people hard at work. And that's the end of the show. You might have a slide that says any questions. How do you get out of the show? Well, you click, you press the escape button and you're back and we're at the end of our show. Perfect. Let's save that. We are ready to submit, so let's close. We must close out of that. I'm going to move my folder window over to the side because I'm going to drag and drop. Here's my instructions. I'm already at the top over here. So all I have to do is grab this PowerPoint file, drop it, you ready? I'm ready. I think I'm ready. How about that? We got our 100%. Great job, great job. If not, if you missed a step, but mistakes do happen, remember to look at your image file, correct any errors, and upload again. Great job today, folks. See you in PowerPoint Chapter 4.